Hey everyone, welcome to the Week 5 prediction video for the Danker Family Fantasy Football League. I'm your host, Paul Jensen, and let's go ahead and dive right into Week 5 matchups. But of course, as we start off with some transactions to start things off, just ones that caught my eye a little bit. Aunt Carroll added the Ravens defense. That's a good add, especially with this week's matchup against Pittsburgh. Matt, obviously everyone knows, at least all the people who follow the NFL knows the Steelers fans are not necessarily excited about Matt Canada and calling for his head. So any defense playing Pittsburgh's offense so far seems to be doing pretty well. And good job of dropping Tutu Atwell since Cooper Kupp might be coming back. Now Tutu has been playing pretty well to start, but last week had a kind of a down week, and then with Cooper Kupp coming back, yeah, his production might drop off suddenly. Um, Myself, I added Jamison Williams. He's coming off suspension now. He probably won't get any playing time in my fantasy league for a little bit, but who knows? He could go off and he was the number one. He was a first round draft pick 2 years ago, I believe. So he has a lot of potential. Super fast speed, super quick receiver. You know what I'm saying. But anyway, um Nels, Dad, where were you? I think I saw right here you added the Dolphins defense. Again, another matchup decision. Um, Miami's playing the Giants, and everyone knows the Giants offense has been playing horrible. So another good pickup. I know they got boat raced in Buffalo, but again, that was Buffalo. Everything's matchup based when it comes to defenses. So I think that was a good pickup by Nels. John Lopp, I saw that he picked up CJ Stroud. That was a great. I mean, he's looking like he might be offensive rookie of the year in the NFL. Through I know it's only been 4 weeks, but so far so good. He's been playing really well, and especially with uh, John having his quarterback on a bye week, which we'll get into that soon. I think that was a solid pickup for him. And John also added the Lions defense, and so the Lions aren't necessarily the best defense out there, but they are playing the Panthers, and defenses who play Carolina seem to be doing pretty well so far in fantasy this year. So another matchup pickup for John Lott. And then my mom, Joan, she added Jake Ferguson at tight end. Now, he's been pretty surprisingly a little bit productive the last couple of weeks for Dallas. So interesting choice. We'll see what his matchup looks like, and I'll let you know if I think it's a good pickup for this week or not. Um, and then Adrian, you added Sam Howell, finally going with a different quarterback after Danny Dimes just diming it up on the field. But yeah, he's Daniel Jones has been pretty awful to say the least, other than that week 2 game against Arizona. Um, and yeah, it's not looking good for him in a matchup against Miami. And Sam Howell's playing the Bears defense. So anytime you're playing the Bears defense, it's most likely going to be a good decision. So good pickup by Adrian there. And then lastly, this one actually just happened a few minutes ago. Garrett picked up the Vikings defense and or no, I'm sorry, he dropped the Vikings defense and added the Colts defense. Another matchup play there. Colts defense has been kind of back and forth. They are playing at home against Tennessee. Tennessee's very run heavy. I'm not sure if Indianapolis will be able to stop Derrick Henry, and hopefully he doesn't because I have Derrick Henry. But we'll see how that goes. And then just another quick glance at the waiver report. Not much competition out there. Only I was the only one who missed out on someone, and I unsuccessfully tried to get the Ravens defense when Aunt Carroll got them. So congratulations, Aunt Carol. I think I was second on the waiver wire and you were first, so you were quite literally the only person who could have beat me to that. So, good job, Aunt Carol, for that. All right, now moving on to the entree of this episode, the predictions. So, here we go. Week 5, starting off with yours truly against the undefeated Uncle Tom. Boy, I am not looking forward to this at all. I mean, it's not looking good for me. I mean, Uncle Tom's team is just incredible. Um, yeah, the projections show him with an easy win, and I do think that that's sadly that's going to be the case. I mean, his team is just too good. Both Tua and Patrick Mahomes had down weeks last week. I think they're both going to bounce back against easier opponents, especially with Tua against the Giants. But although, with that being said, I think Patrick Mahomes does have the advantage, just because uh, you know. he's Tua. It's Tua, and you just can't rely on Tua. I think you can rely a little bit more on Patrick Mahomes. So at running backs, I'm also going to give this one to Tom. I mean, Josh Jacobs is playing the Packers defense. Packers defense, for whatever reason, Joe Barry doesn't know how to stop the run. It disappoints me as a Packer fan, but it's the truth. Josh Jacobs, I mean, David Montgomery had an amazing performance last week. He had 34 points against Green Bay's defense. So Josh Jacobs, prepare for him to just go off. And then David Montgomery, playing another young team in Carolina, and he's going to get the majority of the carries, so he'll be great too. Derrick Henry, I think he'll be good against Indianapolis. I mean, he had a great week last week. He hasn't been the most consistent guy for me at running back, but he is a guy that I have to rely on. Miles Sanders, very up and down. He's playing at Detroit. This one I'm not really too thrilled about, especially since he's questionable with a groin injury. I just don't really have any other better options at running back as of now. I've been trying to explore the trade market a little bit for running back, but it's just tough because the asking price is a little too high on my end, which I feel like if at 1 and 3 maybe that doesn't matter, but whatever. I'll give Tom the edge at running back. Wide receiver, I'm also going to give Tom the edge. So I got Terry McLaurin going tonight for Washington against Chicago. And that one, I think he'll do well. Puka Nacua, I think will also do well. He will do slightly. He won't be as great because Cooper Kupp might be coming back. So, Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp have that instant connection. So we'll see how it goes for Puka, but with Cooper Kupp coming back, you would expect his production to go down just a little bit. For Tom, Tyreek Hill against that Giants defense, this is going to be one of those 30 plus point games for Tyreek. I can already feel it. Devontae Smith also going up against like a patchwork defense in the Rams. He'll get his catches. I have a feeling Devontae Smith will get at least 13 points, which combined with Tyreek's 30 plus will be enough to overcome my two wide receivers. So yeah, Tom has the edge there. At tight end, I'm also going to give this to Tom. Another one, not looking good for me. TJ Hawkinson, he had a down week last week, but still overall he's more reliable than Luke Musgrave, or if I decide to play Kyle Pitts, either one of those two. So he's gonna go off in that one. For flex, I'm finally gonna give myself the advantage. I mean, Devontae Adams is questionable though. I think he will play though because he has been practicing all week. He was just limited with a shoulder injury. Um, and Uncle Tom is Kyron Williams. Now the Phillies run defense is pretty solid, so I think the Rams are going to be passing a lot, especially with Cooper Kupp back. So maybe expect Kyron Williams' production to go down just a little bit. But with that being said, I think Devontae Adams will be the favorite in that matchup for flex. At defense, I'll also give myself just a slight advantage. Houston's defense looked great the last couple of weeks against Jacksonville and Pittsburgh. They're going to be on the road in Atlanta. Another offensive team is struggling. As long as they're able to stop the run game with Bijan Robinson, then I think Houston's going to do well. Because Desmond Ridder is just not a good quarterback, and they really don't have. I mean, Drake London and Kyle Pitts haven't really lived up to the hype, so to speak, yet as receivers. And the Bills defense, I mean, they are usually a good defense, but I feel like Jacksonville's maybe starting to turn a corner a little bit. Now they did play Atlanta's defense, who's not really known for much, so who knows? The Bills might be able to shut down Jacksonville, but they also did just lose Tre'Davious White, their top cornerback for the season. So that hurts for Buffalo. So I'm going to give myself just a slight edge there. And that game's being played in London too, so who knows? The travel might affect the defense. I don't know. So with that all being said, though, Tom's going to get the easy win here, unfortunately for me. His team is just too good. I mean, I can't lie. I envy him all the time about it. Just some options for me. I mean, my running back situation is not as good as I thought it was going into the season. I really thought this would be a year Najee Harris would do better. I mean, I didn't think the Steelers would still be struggling with the run game, and you'd think Kenny Pickett would evolve as a passer that would allow defenses to, defend the pass well, but try to defend the pass better against him, but it just hasn't been working out. Unfortunately, one of my best players, Keenan Allen, is on a bye week, which stinks. So, but I'm not too upset about that because Terry McLaurin had a good week last week, and I'm finally able to play him for the first time this season. So we'll see how that goes against Chicago. But yeah, I mean, when you have a guy like Keenan Allen out, it does hurt a little bit. Uncle Tom has Kenneth Walker out though, so he has one of his better running backs out. But I feel like that doesn't matter because Josh Jacobs and David Montgomery are both going to go off. So yeah, that's how it's looking for me. And also tight end's just a coin flip. I could play either Luke Musgrave or Kyle Pitts, and I don't think it'll matter. So yeah, really my options are kind of limited this week, especially with the bye week, and unless I'm able to pull off a trade for a better running back or maybe a decent tight end, then I'm not sure um, if I have a chance, to be honest, against Uncle Tom, unless everyone on his team just amazingly has bad weeks. So, and which can happen, but I just don't think it's likely. For Tom, he's playing it pretty almost perfectly. I mean, the only thing I would say is maybe he could consider Christian Watson or Brandon Ayuk at flex over Kyron Williams. I really do think, I mean, Kyron Williams has been playing well. I just think that again, going up against Philly's run defense and the fact that Cooper Kupp's back with the Ram or supposedly is going to be back. I think Christian Watson will have a decent game against the Raiders or Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk's been pretty good too. So I think I mean, there really is no either way. He'll be good. He'll be fine. But that's the only thing I would say for Tom. So. Moving on to the next game, Garrett versus Aunt Carol. Garrett trying to get above 500 and compete with Tom for the top of the West Division, and Carol's trying to get up from the bottom at the East. So, looking at this matchup, I do like Carol's quarterback Jalen Hurts over Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's just been struggling, and it's getting to a point where I'm not sure if this is like if it's really his injury that's affecting him or if he's just something's wrong, something's off with the offense. I'm not sure, but uh, either way, Jalen Hurts has been more reliable this year so far. So I'm going to pick Carroll to have the slight advantage at quarterback. At running back, I'm also going to go Aunt Carroll. Aaron Jones is still questionable. He's still dealing with that hamstring injury. He didn't play that much last week against Detroit. I hope he does well, but and Vegas does have a bad run defense, so who knows? I mean, it could work out, but they also might be splitting more time with AJ Dillon. And then Dameon Pierce, I like too. It's just with CJ Stroud going off, it seems like Dameon Pierce's role hasn't been as big as you would have expected it to be through 4 weeks of the season. And plus, Carroll has Joe Mixon. The Cardinals have allowed the third most points to running backs in fantasy, so I expect Joe Mixon to have a great game, especially since the passing game in Cincinnati hasn't looked great so far. They'll probably rely a little bit more on Joe Mixon. And Isaiah Pacheco finally went off last week against the Jets defense, and I think the Chiefs kind of figured out something with that, and they're going to get him more involved and really just he'll continue to skyrocket and show why I thought he was the most underrated fantasy player this year. So I like Aunt Carroll at running back as well. At receiver, um, yes, Garrett has Justin Jefferson, who always does well, and I expect him to do well again. But he also has Jerry Jeudy in there, and he's been very underwhelming as a wide receiver too for Denver. So I'm just gonna go with Aunt Carroll. Jamar Chase. I mean, again, passing game hasn't looked great so far, but Jamar Chase has been playing better the last couple of weeks. And plus he's going up against a weaker defense, in my opinion, in Arizona than Kansas City for Justin Jefferson. And Zay Flowers, I feel like Zay Flowers is one of those guys you could probably use him or sub him out with Tank Dell or Romeo Dobbs, and she'll be fine either way. So I'm gonna give Carroll just a very, very slight advantage at wide receiver. Jefferson will probably have the most points of these four, but I think Carroll in total with these two, with Flowers and Jamar Chase, will have just a little bit more than the combination of Jefferson and Jeudy. Tight end, I am going to go with Carroll, Sam Laporte. I mean, George Kittle, he's only had one good performance so far. Now he could have another one, but Dallas's defense has been tough, especially against tight ends. I don't expect George Kittle to have a great game in this one. Whereas Sam Laporta, he's been playing really well, and he's going against a young defense in Carolina. And I think, Detroit's going to run a lot, but then they're also going to use a lot of play action. And Sam Laporta is going to get a lot of those, um, you know, wide open looks off of the fake runs. So I think Sam Laporta is going to do well. At flex, I'm also going to give this one to Carroll. Nico Collins has been playing tremendous. He's been Houston's either second or first. I mean, I'd say first. He's just the 2 weeks earlier, you thought Tank Dell was the top receiver, but I think Nico Collins is starting to become wide receiver one in Houston. And Cortland Sutton has been playing well too. I just don't like his matchup. He'll be facing off against Gardner Sauce. Um, and Nico Collins is going to be going up against probably Terrell. So they're actually both going up against tough opponents, but I'm going to pick Collins just a little bit because I trust CJ Stroud a little bit more than Russell Wilson. I can't believe I'm saying that. I guess it's just mainly the defenses like Atlanta and the Jets. But anyway, and then moving on to defense, also going to go Carroll, Ravens defense against Pittsburgh. Yeah, I think that's going to be a much better, much more easier one to go with than Indianapolis over Tennessee because I still think there is a way Tennessee can win that game ground and pound on the run game. I know the Titans don't really have a great passing offense, but the Colts don't really have like a scary front seven or a dominant front seven to really stop the run. So I'm going to go with Carroll and the Ravens defense. So with that all being said, I think this is an easy win for Aunt Carroll. This one shows as like a 7-point victory. I think it's maybe 10 or more for Carroll, to be honest with you. Um, and then just some things to note, some players on buys. I mean, Carroll's got Rashad White, one of her running backs on buy, um, which kind of left the door open for Nico Collins to come up with flex because Isaiah Pacheco moved to running back 2. For Garrett, this one was tough. I feel like if Garrett had DK and Mike Evans playing in this, then he would have a lot more of a shot of winning, especially having better wide receiver outcome. But because both of those guys are out at the same week, it's tough. It's tough to replace those two. They're both pretty good. I know Mike Evans got hurt, but when he's healthy, he's a really solid wide receiver 1 or flex play. But then just looking at some options, Sutton's definitely been earning his playing time. I just think it's a tough matchup this week. So I mean, you have no better options to be honest. I mean, unless you want to risk playing Odell Beckham and see how that goes, but I doubt you'd want to do that. And then Burrow versus Goff, there's that constant debate that I keep having, because I mean, Burrow's been struggling a lot more, but even then, like, Goff's had his struggles too. It's just tough. You would think Joe Burrow will figure it out at some point, and this might be a good opportunity for him to go off against Arizona's defense. So yeah, and then for Carroll, the only thing maybe you could consider playing Romeo Dobbs over Zay Flowers. Romeo Dobbs 3 of the 4 weeks has scored 18 points, which is pretty good. Now, although Christian Watson is going to be playing now with Green Bay, so we'll see how that affects Romeo Dobbs's his targets and stuff like that. And also Tank Dell, he with Houston, it's tough because Collins he's scored more points overall than Tank Dell, but Tank Dell has had a little bit more consistency in week, especially week 2 and 3. He went off for 25 points each. So it's just I feel like it's kind of a coin flip with those two. Um, Moving on to the third game of the week, Adrian 2-2 versus Nels 2-2. One of these two is going to go over 500. The other one's going to go under 500. Look at that. Looking at the quarterback situation, I think even though Adrian did pick up Sam Howell, I still think Nels has the better quarterback play here. Lamar Jackson against a struggling Steelers defense. Now Sam Howell is playing Chicago, although I think Chicago's run defense is horrible, so they might rely on the run game a little bit more than the passing game. So yeah, Lamar Jackson would get Dad the favorite there. At running back, I'm gonna say Dad is the favorite here too. Tony Pollard's been incredible this year. He hasn't really had a bad game. James Conner's kind of consistent. He had a down week last week, but that was against San Francisco on the road. Cincinnati's run defense has not looked good, so I expect James Conner to have a bounce back game at that one. For Adrian, once again, running backs. DeAndre Swift, now he's been a little bit more consistent than I thought, so he might have a good game against the Rams defense. But Ramondre Stevenson, it's back-to-back weeks going up against a tough defense. Last week he didn't do anything against Dallas. Going up against a tough Saints run defense this week, and I don't see Ramondre doing that well. I'm surprised he's even projected at 12.9, almost 13 points. So I'm gonna give Nels the edge at running back. At wide receiver, I'm gonna give Adrian a slight advantage, just because Stephon Diggs was just incredible last week, and I expect him to keep performing well. Now he probably won't have 36 again, but I do think he'll definitely have 20 plus against Jacksonville. Jacksonville just played a really weak opponent last week, so it made him look a lot better. DeAndre Hopkins, now I still think he's a little overrated, but he's going to be one of the few receivers to rely on against the Colts. So the Colts defense is kind of lackluster too. So I expect him to have a decent game. Whereas, Chris Olave had a really bad game last week, and I expect him to bounce back, but he also is playing a tough pass defense in New England. Not, I mean, last week, yeah, they looked bad against Dallas, but overall, throughout the season, New England's been more of a pass defending team than a run defending team. Um, Michael Pittman, I expect him to get a lot of shares, a lot of targets since Tennessee's got a good run defense. I think they have one of the best run defense in all of football. So definitely, I like the play here for Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman's definitely turning into like a solid like wide receiver two, kind of reliable player. So I think that's good. But I still think just with Stephon Diggs' outcome and DeAndre Hopkins will have the opportunity to have a decent game. I like just that combination just a little bit more than Olave and Pittman. So I'm gonna go with Adrian at receiver. At tight end, you got the top two tight ends playing each other, right? You got Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce, tight end one, tight end two in the draft. I'm gonna go Kelce here, just because he's playing Minnesota, who's not as good of a defense. I mean, Pittsburgh's a bad defense, but overall, um, I think Pittsburgh. I think I saw something. It was like Pittsburgh has given up the eighth least. He's like they're basically in the top 10 as far as defending tight ends, whereas Minnesota's not. So just go figure. I'm gonna go with Travis Kelce. I think he's more talented anyway. So there you go, Dad. Flex, I'm going to go with Adrian, CeeDee Lamb. Now, the 49ers do have a decent defense, but they've actually been a lot better against the run than against the pass. Expect CeeDee Lamb to get a lot of targets and a lot more higher production value than what most people would think. I like Brian Robinson against the Bears defense. I really do. I just think that with but he's also splitting time with Antonio Gibson. So it's not like he's the main guy yet. I think he should be the main guy, but for whatever reason, he's not at least yet. So with that being said, I think CeeDee Lamb will have a better outcome. And then at defense, I'm going to go Nels heavy on this one. Whenever you're playing the Bears, it's most likely, unless you're the Broncos defense, who's terrible, um, then I do like and plus Washington's got a great front seven, so they're going to be super laser focused on making Justin Fields beat them with his arm and not his legs. So I do like and I like the odds of him not being able to beat them with his arm. So I'm going to go with the Commanders defense. Eagles defense is playing the Rams. The Rams have quite a pretty good offense, and even though they're tough against the run, I think the addition of Cooper Kupp, pairing him with Nakua, the Matthew Stafford's going to have a decent throwing game. So overall, I think Dad's Commanders defense is a better outcome there. So with that all being said, I think Nels gets the win here since he has the edge at quarterback, running back, tight end, and defense. So give him an easy win, probably 10. I think this is a fair projection, about 10 plus points. No buys for Dad. That's pretty crazy. For Adrian, it's just Deshaun Watson and Zach Charbonnet, but he doesn't really play Zach Charbonnet. But going forward, or just for any options, I think Adrian might need to consider looking at a new defense for this week. I mean, I know the Eagles defense usually is well. They didn't do well last week against Washington. They're also on the road in LA against a pretty good, like I said, a pretty good pass offense in the Rams. So I expect them to have like a down game. And also maybe, I mean, I did write on my notes, find a better QB option. I think you did. So there you go, Adrian. And then for Nels, I think you can't really go wrong with any defense you select. I mean, I'd like this decision of you picking the Commanders defense against Chicago. But even if you had played the Saints defense against the Patriots, the Patriots offense has been pretty bad. That would have been a good play. Dolphins defense against the Giants at home, I think that would have been a good play. I think it wouldn't have been a wrong decision no matter who you picked. But I do like the fact that you're going dead set against the Bears. Um, and another thing that kind of shocked me, Deebo Samuel on your bench, like that's interesting. You'd think he's like a clear-cut guy to start, but it is a matchup thing, and Dallas has been the second best team against the pass, so it's kind of a risk, but I kind of see where you're going with that. So a little interesting there. Going to the fourth matchup, Joan, Tennessee touchdowns, 2-2 against John Lopp, another 2-2. Again, just like the last one, you got two 2-2 teams, one trying to go above 500. At quarterback, too bad Justin Herbert is on a bye for John. because if it was the case, I would have picked John at quarterback, but I'm gonna go with Josh Allen just slightly over CJ Stroud. Um, Josh Allen's been playing absolutely phenomenal the last couple of weeks. I think he continues that against Jacksonville. Um, at running back, I'm gonna go John. He's got Bijan Robinson, who usually plays pretty well. I mean, he had one down week against Detroit, but he's back at home and he's playing against Houston. Houston's defense is kind of middle of the pack. Like they're decent. I know they had a good game against Pittsburgh last week, but Pittsburgh's offense is just horrible. And I think the Falcons, if they can, I think the Falcons, Bijan Robinson's like the one guy, the one reliable guy on that offense. So, you can always rely on him. Alvin Kamara had a great game last week against Tampa Bay. Even though the Saints overall look bad, Alvin Kamara had a great game. I expect him to do something similar against New England. New England's got a better pass defense than run defense, so I expect Kamara to have a pretty good game. Madison, I mean, he's been getting better, but I still don't see him doing as well as Bijan Robinson and Raheem Mostert. He's just a wild card. He could be great. Like last week, he didn't do much, but obviously the weeks 2 and 3, he was great. So you just never know with Raheem. He's not consistent enough to trust, especially since you don't know if it's going to be him or Achane that's going to get the majority of the carries or the majority of the catches in the backfield. So I trust John Lop's running backs more than Jones. Um, Going to wide receiver, I'm also obviously this kind of all hinges on Cooper Kupp if he plays or not, which it's looking like he will. So if since that's the case, I'm going to go with John at his receivers over Mom's. Um, Garrett Wilson, I think will have a good game against Denver, but George Pickens going up against Baltimore, I don't like that matchup. Cooper Kupp coming back, I think even if he's limited, I think he'll do pretty well. And then Jalen Waddle, I think this is his breakout game. I really do because the Giants have been humiliated. And even though Tyreek Hill, like I know I said in my matchup with Tom, now I hope I'm wrong. I hope Tyreek Hill doesn't do anything. And I hope for John's sake and my sake that Jalen Waddle's better. So here you go, John. Please, I'm begging you. I'm begging Jalen Waddle to please have a better game than Tyreek Hill. But even with that, even if Tyreek Hill still has a good game, I think Jalen Waddle will do well. They complement each other so much. It's hard to choose one or the other in terms of defending. So I think Jalen Waddle will have a great game against the Giants. At tight end, I'm going to go with Joan just slightly. Dalton Kincaid again. John's just really in the market for a good tight end. He really is, and he's splitting time with Dawson Knox. Yeah, that's all I can say. I'm going to sound like a broken record every time I talk about John's tight end until things change. But Jake Ferguson, I think that was a good pickup for Mom. He's been pretty surprisingly productive at tight end, so I like that pickup for Joan. I keep saying Joan and Mom. I'm just going to keep saying Mom, so because you all know that she's my mom. Anyway, at flex, I'm going to go with John just slightly. Saquon Barkley is coming back off injury. And if he does play, then he'll probably be a little bit limited. But I still like a limited Saquon over wide receiver 2 Christian Kirk against Buffalo defense. So yeah, I think, and plus, they're going to be Giants are going to be heavy reliable on Saquon early in that game. And if it gets out of hand, then they're going to be throwing a lot. And he's a guy who can catch out of the backfield too. So I like that one just a little bit more. And then when it comes to defense, I'm going to go John just slightly. The Jets, now overall, the Jets have a better defense than the Lions, but um, I think the Lions are at home against a young Carolina offense who's been struggling. The Jets are on the road in Denver, and Denver's offense, I mean, I know their defense has been horrible, but Denver's offense has actually been pretty solid, and they were great against the Bears. And I know it was the Bears defense, but Denver's offense has not been the problem. It's been their defense. So, I think that the Jets will have just a little bit less of a good game than the Lions will in this matchup. So with that being said, I'm going to give John Lop the slight advantage, like ever so slightly. Like this says a 10-point win for John. I think it's more like a 5 or less point victory for John. It's going to be close, in my opinion. Looking at buys, Mom's got Eckler on a buy, but he's still hurt. John's got Herbert and Lockett. So it kind of makes sense. It's a good time for Cooper Kupp and Saquon Barkley to come back since Lockett's out on a bye. But other options, for tight end, Mom could have gone either way, I think. I mean, yes, Jake Ferguson has been more productive than Darren Waller, but I also think, Jake Ferguson does have a little bit of a tougher matchup than Darren Waller, but it's just the fact that Ferguson's been more reliable. I think it's better that she's playing him anyway. And then also, I think there's really nothing else Mom could have done differently in terms instead of picking up or trading for someone. So I think she's playing the best she possibly can. And then for John, he's just got too many good running backs. I mean, you got Jonathan Taylor. I mean, he might not even play, but just the fact that he's on your bench, and then Zach Moss, and then Achan, the fact that they're all on your bench is ridiculous, man. Someone needs to. I mean, I've been trying to think of some trades because I know I need running back help, but what John's asking for, man, I'm not sure I'm willing to give up. So it's tough. It really is. And plus, I'm 1-3, so what do I have to look for anyway? Um, but yeah, and then just in case, and I think Cooper Kupp will play, but just in case the slight off chance he doesn't play, I do think Gabe Davis, even though he's projected at 9, which I disagree with, I think he'd be a good backup plan, like a plan B to have just in case. Gabe Davis has been playing pretty well the last 3 weeks of the season, so I think he's a little underrated. I'm not sure why he's only projected at 9, being wide receiver 2 in Buffalo, but hey, that's just me. And then moving on to the last matchup of the week, Kerry at 2-2 versus Ben at 2-2. 3 straight 2-2 matchups. We're gonna have a lot of 3-2s and a lot of 2-3s. So, yeah. So for this matchup at quarterback, I think Kerry's just got the slight advantage. Now, Justin Fields had a great game last week against the Broncos. He is playing a much tougher defense in Washington, at least tougher front seven. So, and they're going to do everything they can to stop the run game. So, I do like Kirk Cousins playing Kansas City's defense over Justin Fields on the road. At running back, I'm also going to go. Actually, no, running back, I'm going to go with Ben. I mean, Christian McCaffrey's been the most productive player in all of fantasy football. He's so far the fantasy MVP. He's averaging 30 points a game. I think the least amount of points he's had in a week was 22 and a half. So he'll be great as always. Even playing a Dallas defense who is good, at this point I'm just expecting Christian McCaffrey to have a 20 plus point game. And then Travis Etienne playing the Bills defense. That one will be a little bit tougher, but he is a more reliable receiving back though. So you expect him to get a lot of catches. Carey's got Jahmyr Gibbs and James Cook. Jahmyr Gibbs is playing behind David Montgomery, but so he probably won't get as many targets. And James Cook, I think he does well against Jacksonville, but overall, I like McCaffrey and Etienne just a little bit more. At receiver, I think Ben's got the slight advantage here. Now, Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think he'll have a great game. I'm expecting so T. Higgins probably won't play. So I'm thinking Carey's going to replace him with either DJ Moore or Marquise Brown. Those are both fine receivers to play, and they've been playing pretty well lately. But overall, though, AJ Brown, he's going to go off against the Rams defense. He's been tremendous. Calvin Ridley, number one receiver. The Bills lost Tre'Davious White, their number one corner. So Calvin Ridley might have a great game against Buffalo too. So I like the potential of Ben's receivers more than Carey's. At tight end, I'm also going to go Ben. Cole Kmet has been playing pretty well lately, even in the struggling Bears offense. He's been like Justin Fields' main target as far as receiving go, which is weird because they have DJ Moore, but you would have thought. But yeah, Cole Kmet's been a more reliable tight end this season. Hunter Henry has been more productive, but it's also kind of skewed. Like the first couple of weeks, Hunter Henry went off, and the last couple of weeks he hasn't done much. He's playing up against a really tough Saints defense. Like they got really good linebackers that'll be able to cover him. And Mac Jones, I don't trust him moving forward, throwing the ball to him. Whereas I think Justin Fields and Cole Kmet have been playing with each other the last couple of years, and they're very they're getting that chemistry building up between those two because he's definitely easily been their number one receiving option this year in their offense. At flex, I'm gonna go Carey if Carey replaces T Higgins with DJ Moore or Marquise Brown. I think flex is gonna be Carey's option. Ben doesn't really have many other options since he's got a lot of guys on bye. He's got Cooper on a bye, Godwin on a bye, and Njoku on a bye. So, it's either going to be Jacoby Myers, AJ Dillon, or Khalil Herbert, or maybe even Tyler Boyd. Either way, though, I like Marquise Brown or DJ Moore over Jacoby Myers. Myers has been okay, but especially since Adams probably will play, expect Myers' production to go down just a little bit. Defense, I mean, Carey hasn't made a change at defense yet, so by default, I kind of have to go with Ben at defense, even though he's playing the Packers defense. who's playing a team with Josh Jacobs who's going to run all over them. So I don't know. I feel like I could give this to Carrie if she picked up a defense that is actually playing, but who knows? Maybe she'll just play the Bucks defense and hope the Packers defense get negative. I don't know. I don't know. But that would be interesting. But just by default, I have to give Ben the advantage there because Carey just doesn't have a defense yet. But with that being said, I think Ben gets the win in this one. He's got pretty much most of the advantages in this one except for quarterback and flex. Moving forward though, but just some other options. Yeah, like I said, Marquise Brown at wide receiver two. T. Higgins had one great game, but the rest of the year he hasn't really done much. Plus he's hurt too, and he might not play. And also, is it time to think about playing Breece Hall over Jahmyr Gibbs? Now I know Jahmyr Gibbs is a guy that, he's still playing behind David Montgomery, and the Lions haven't used him yet to what they were expecting to use him as, but just re being more reliable, I think Breece Hall, I know Breece Hall hasn't been the most productive either, but you know, I think Breece Hall is starting to emerge as the main back in New York, even though he is still technically splitting time with Dalvin Cook. It does seem like Breece is getting at least like the majority of the carries in that offense. So, and plus just got a horrible defense anyway. So, but also Carolina does too. But they also, yeah, so it's just it it's a tough decision to make. And then also for Ben, maybe, I mean, I think he's playing everything pretty well. Just hoping maybe Justin Fields continues what his progress from last week. But other than that, I think everything else looks pretty good, pretty solid. I don't really see any other options for him as far as like replacing guys, at least from who's available on his bench. So yeah, like if Chris Godwin or Amari Cooper were available, I would say play them definitely over Jacoby Myers, but they're on buys. So what can you do? All right, so that's the show for today. Those were all the predictions for week 5. Hope everyone has a great weekend. Really excited to watch the matchups this weekend in the NFL, and I will see you in the week 5 recap next Tuesday. All right, have a good night, everyone. Thank you.